Have you ever noticed this strange paradox? The more you explain yourself, the weaker you seem. The more you react, the more power you give away, and the harder you try to prove your innocence. The more obvious it becomes that someone got to. You're not in a world flooded with noise, where everyone is shouting to be heard. Silence isn't passivity anymore, it's strategy. Because sometimes when your words are twisted, when the truth is used against you like a weapon, when your emotions become their entertainment, this isn't a conversation anymore. It's a psychological game. And here's the truth. The louder you get, the more you've already lost. But here's the twist no one tells you. You don't have to fight back. You don't have to shout to prove a point. You don't have to explain yourself to be right. You only need two things: silence and time. Because the moment you fall silent, karma begins to speak. You step back, but the universe steps in. You stay still, but the truth starts to move. And here's the beauty of it: truth has gravity. It doesn't need a defense team. It always pulls itself back to where it belongs. In this video, we'll break down 7 powerful situations where a wise man chooses silence not out of fear, not out of submission, but out of strength. To protect his peace, to preserve his dignity, and to let the weight of others' actions collapse on them without lifting a single finger. Because silence isn't the absence of words, it's the presence of control. Stick with me until the final chapter, because the last one, it may just change the way you see silence forever. Let's start with one of the hardest tests of all: being lied about. Few things feel more unjust than someone spreading lies behind your back. The reaction is instant. You want to correct the record, clear your name, shout the truth from the rooftops. But here's a harsh reality that most never want to admit. The more you explain yourself, the guiltier you look. The more you chase clarity, the more chaos they create. Because those who spread lies don't care about facts. They're not after truth. They're after your reaction. They want to shake your calm. They want to see you flinch. They want to turn your defense into a show so they can twist your honesty into proof of guilt. And here's the trap: if you react, you've already lost. This is where Stoicism draws a line in the sand. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not true, do not say it. If it is not right, do not do it." That's it. No pleading, no chasing, no justifying. You live by your integrity, not their twisted version of your story. Because lies may travel fast, but they fade. Truth, it moves slower, but it lasts. It doesn't need to be defended. It reveals itself in time. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, let's call him James. He was accused at work of something he never did. Whispers spread. People pulled away. His first instinct, defend himself, set the record straight. But instead, he chose silence. He kept his head down. He stayed calm. He did his work, and he let his actions speak louder than words ever could. Weeks later, the truth surfaced. The accuser was exposed for manipulating others in the past, and James, because he never fought back, he never lost face. He never fed the fire. He rose above the noise, and his dignity remained untouched. That is Stoic strength. So how do you respond when someone lies about you? First, trust the Last time, we saw what happens when you face lies with silence, how dignity survives when you let truth speak, louder than your defense. But silence doesn't just protect your image. It protects your soul, because the long game always belongs to the truth. Falsehoods, they're loud, messy, and fast. But truth is patient and permanent. Let time do its quiet. Deliberate work. Second, anchor yourself in your values. When you truly know who you are, what you stand for, no rumor, no gossip, no attack can shake your foundation. The storm can howl, but it won't move you. Third, let karma speak for you. People who thrive on lies usually live in cycles of drama. They twist their stories so often, they eventually trap themselves in the very web they spun. Sooner or later, their chaos catches up. They lie themselves into a corner, and there's no easy way out. At the end of the day, silence isn't surrender. It's self-respect. You're not hiding. You're rising above the chaos, above the need to retaliate, above the lie itself. Let them talk, let them spin, and let the truth do what it always does, return. But what about betrayal? Because betrayal doesn't just hurt, it shakes the very ground beneath you. It's not just strangers who wound us. It's the people closest to us, the ones we trusted, friends, partners, family. And when that trust is shattered, it feels like your chest collapses inward. Your first instinct, confront them. Ask, how could you? Demand answers. Plead for acknowledgement. Do you even understand what you've done to me? But here's the brutal truth. People who betray you have already created a story in their mind, where they are the victim. They've justified it. They've rationalized it. And some, they know exactly what they've done and simply don't care. The more you try to find closure from them, the more you reopen your own wound. Because betrayal isn't just a break of trust, it's a theft of energy. What do they want now? Your reaction, your pain, your confusion. Why? Because it proves they matter. So what happens when you give them nothing? No rage, no revenge, not even an explanation. Just silence. That's when it hits them. They didn't just lose access to your words. They lost access to your soul. Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." And betrayal, that's friction. It stings. But it clarifies. It reveals what's real and what was never meant to last. It forces you to face one of life's hardest truths. Not everyone you love is meant to stay. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, let's call her Sarah. She had a best friend for over a decade. They shared everything: dreams, doubts, victories. But one day, Sarah discovered the truth. That friend had betrayed her, exposed her secrets, undermined her success. Why? Jealousy, insecurity, ego. Sarah's first impulse: explode, to confront, to lash out, to make her feel the pain she'd caused. But instead, she chose silence. No drama, no screaming match, just a quiet, decisive exit. And do you know what happened? The friend waited. She braced for the fallout. She was ready for chaos. But all she got was absence. And that silence, it haunted her. because silence has weight. It echoes deeper than any argument ever could. So when betrayal finds you, and it will remember this, first, accept who they truly are. Don't cling to who you thought they were. That version no longer exists. Second, don't waste your breath on someone who already wrote your value in pencil. You don't need to make them understand what they chose to ignore. Third, walk away, quietly, without explanation. Because silence forces reflection, and reflection is the one thing betrayers fear most. In the end, you didn't lose them. They lost access to you. They lost access to someone loyal, someone real, someone rare. Let them live with that, not through punishment, but through your absence and your peace. Now let's talk about insults, because insults are cheap. That's why the weak reach for them when someone throws sarcasm, passive aggression, or a direct verbal jab. They're not searching for truth. They're searching for reaction. Your anger, that's their reward. Your attention, that's their validation. And the moment you snap back, raise your voice, or try to defend yourself, you've handed them exactly what they were fishing for: control. It doesn't matter how sharp your comeback is, how clever, how cutting, how accurate. If you respond, you've already played their game. And here's the part most people never realize. You don't need to win the argument. You just need to not enter it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Read that again, slowly. When someone insults you, they're inviting you down to their level. They want you to abandon your dignity, to flail in the mud, to react like they would. But a Stoic doesn't live in the mud. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't snap. He doesn't try to win. He just observes, calm, still, unmoved. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, let's call him David. After years of hard work, David earned a well-deserved promotion. At a company event, just as he was being congratulated, a jealous co-worker took a cheap jab in front of everyone. "Wow, I guess they're giving promotions to just anyone now." The whole room turned, all eyes on David, waiting for a clapback, a reaction, a spark. But David, he looked the man in the eyes, smiled, and said nothing. No comeback, no insult, no drama. Just silence. And in that moment, David didn't just win the room. He won the war. Because silence, it strips power. And nothing frustrates an insulter more than being ignored. So how did you handle insults? First, recognize what they're fishing for. They're not looking for resolution. They're trying to disrupt your peace. Don't take the bait. Second, let your stillness speak. When your face stays neutral, when your voice remains calm, it sends a message louder than any words ever could. You don't control me. Third, hold your frame. True confidence doesn't argue. Self-respect doesn't explain. When you refuse to lower yourself, they rise to nothing. At the end of the day, you don't need to match their noise. You need to master your silence, because real strength, it doesn't need to yell. It doesn't need to defend. And sometimes, the most devastating response to an insult is indifference. But what happens when people stop throwing insults and start rewriting reality? Because some don't want resolution. They want control. And the best way to gain control is to play the victim. They rewrite the story. They delete their role. They twist facts, shed tears. And suddenly you're the villain. You try to explain. It only makes it worse. Because from the outside, it looks like you're attacking someone who's already hurting. They've flipped the script. You've been cast as the aggressor. And now, you're the enemy in their performance. Stoic wisdom warns us about this trap. Epictetus once said, "To complain is always non-productive and never appropriate." Because let's be honest, victim. Players don't complain for solutions. They complain for sympathy. And if you step in to defend yourself, you validate the performance. You give the show an audience. And in that twisted theater, the only winning move is silence. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, we'll call her Rachel. She worked with a colleague who had a habit of flipping every situation. Whenever she was held accountable, she'd cry, deflect, shift the blame. Rachel tried to stay rational. She brought proof. She stayed calm. She explained the facts. And yet it always backfired. Why? Because while Rachel was speaking logic, the other woman was playing emotion. And in the court of public opinion, when logic debates emotion for too long, emotion wins. Rachel was trying to have a conversation. The other woman was performing. So Rachel stopped. No more defense. No more counter-arguments. Just grounded, still, stoic silence. And over time, the truth surfaced. People began noticing a pattern. This woman always had a sob story, always had a new enemy, always had some fresh injustice. And eventually, the act collapsed. So how do you deal with someone who manipulates through victimhood? First, don't defend yourself. They're not listening, they're acting. And the audience isn't looking for truth. They're there for drama. Don't feed it. Second, stay emotionally detached. Observe. Don't absorb. Let them drown in the chaos they created for themselves. Third, trust karma and repetition. People might fall for the act once, maybe twice, but patterns don't lie. Eventually, the mask slips. At the end of the day, you don't owe clarity to someone who profits from confusion. Let them play their role. Let them gather their audience. Let them run their script. Because shows end. And silence? That's how you bring down the curtain. Now here's a different kind of wound. Sometimes, the most painful insult isn't what they say to you. It's what they stop noticing about you. You show up. You care. You send the messages. You make the effort. And in return, silence, indifference, disinterest. There's no dramatic betrayal. No shouting match. Just a slow erosion of your value in their eyes. And here's the hard truth. The more you try to prove your worth, the less they see it. Because people don't value what's always available. They value what they fear losing. And when you're constantly present, constantly giving, constantly checking in, you don't become indispensable. You become invisible. But this is where Stoicism hands you your power back. Seneca once wrote, "Time discovers truth." And sometimes, the truth they need to discover is your absence. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, we'll call him Jake. He was the steady one, the reliable friend, the thoughtful colleague, the partner who never forgot to ask how your day was. But slowly, Jake started to notice No one asked about his day. No one reached out unless he did first. And when he stopped calling, days turned into weeks of silence. That's when it hit him. He wasn't being valued. He was being used for convenience. So he made a decision. No drama. No confrontation. Jake didn't give a speech. He didn't explain himself. He simply stopped. And the result? The people who truly cared reached out. The ones who didn't. They faded away on their own. And that silence, that was his answer. So what do you do when your worth is being ignored? First, stop chasing. If they couldn't recognize your value when you were present, let them feel it when you're gone. Second, say nothing. Silence forces awareness. When your consistent presence disappears, your value becomes unmistakably clear. Third, observe. Watch who steps forward. Watch who fills the gap. The people who matter won't need a reminder. They'll notice the shift and move toward you, not away from you. At the end of the day, you don't prove your worth with noise. You prove it with distance. Because those who truly deserved your energy will feel the silence, and those who don't, they were never meant to have it in the first place. Let your absence speak. Let it echo in the space they once took for granted. And never, ever, beg to be seen by those who closed their eyes. But not everyone is trying to ignore you. Some people don't want peace. They want a reaction. They poke. They prod. They say things they know will sting. Not because they're bold, but because it's the only way they feel powerful. And the moment you flinch, they win. The moment you argue, they feed. The second you let your emotions boil over, they know they've got you wrapped around their finger. Here's the truth most people miss. The goal isn't conflict. The goal is control. They want to break your frame. They want to make you act not from reason, but from their emotion. If they can trigger you, they become the puppeteer, smiling on the surface, pulling strings underneath. But here's where Stoicism becomes your shield. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the essence of self-mastery. You can't stop people from trying to provoke you, but you can deny them the one thing they want most, your reaction. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, we'll call him Adam. He had a co-worker who thrived on chaos. Every meeting, every email, every passing comment. There was always a jab, a sarcastic remark, a passive insult, always just vague enough to escape consequence. At first, Adam fought back. He explained himself. He defended. He justified. And every time, he walked out of the room feeling drained, exhausted, defeated. Until one day, he made a shift. At the next meeting, the co-worker struck again, another smug remark. Adam looked at him. He smiled faintly, gave a calm, silent nod, and said, "Nothing. No eye rolls, no sighs, no tension, just calm, still detachment." And the result? The co-worker flinched. Because when you're used to playing with fire, you don't know what to do when the match doesn't. Eventually, he gave up, because without fuel, even the most toxic flame burns itself out. So how did you handle provocation? First, recognize the pattern. Repetition reveals motive. If someone always stirs conflict, It's not personal, it's strategic. Second, hold your frame. Don't let emotional bait pull you off center. You control your breath, your tone, your presence. Third, let your calm be your power. The more unshakable you become, the more powerless they feel. At the end of the day, not everything that provokes you deserves your energy, and not every opponent is worthy of a response. The strongest man in the room isn't the loudest. He's the one everyone tries to provoke, and no one can move, because his silence, it's not empty, it's armor. Regret is loud, but silence? Silence is so much louder. There comes a moment after they've ignored your value, after they've taken you for granted, after they assumed you'd always be there, when they finally realize you're gone. And suddenly, the silence they once dismissed becomes deafening. They start to remember how you listened, how you showed up, how you gave more than you ever received. And in that quiet realization, it hits them. They didn't just lose a person. They lost a presence, a light, a constant. But by the time they realize what they had, it's already too late. And here's what you need to understand. If someone only starts to value you after you leave, then they never truly valued you when it counted. And the worst thing you can do is go back, just because they finally noticed. Epictetus said it best: no man is free who is not master of himself. And self-mastery means this: you don't return to places that broke you. You don't lower your standards to comfort someone else's guilt. You don't chase validation from those who couldn't see your worth when it was standing right in front of them. You don't explain your silence. You let it speak. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, we'll call her Olivia. She poured herself into her relationship. Time, love, energy, presence. Her partner, he got comfortable, took her for granted, assumed her presence was permanent, unshakable, until one day she left. No screaming match, no dramatic fight, no last-ditch emotional plea. Just a clean, quiet departure. At first, he brushed it off, assumed she'd be back, expected the same pattern: chase, return, reset. But the days passed, then weeks, then months, unanswered calls, unsent replies, and the growing echo of a presence he didn't realize he needed until it was no longer his. He begged, apologized, promised change. But Olivia, she had already healed in silence, and that silence, it became her freedom. So what do you do when someone regrets losing you? First, don't give them an easy way back. If your value was invisible before, let your absence be undeniable now. Second, resist the urge to explain. Let them sit with the weight of their choices, without softening the blow, without offering closure they never earned. Third, stand firm in your silence, not out of spite, but out of respect for yourself. Because at the end of the day, they had access to you. They had your presence, your care, your loyalty, and they wasted it. Now, let them sit with that truth alone, because your silence, that's not punishment, that's wisdom. It says, you don't get to walk in and out of my life and still expect the door to stay open. Let them regret, let them remember, but don't let them return. You don't owe them a second chance. You owe yourself peace. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to fight to win. And you don't need to speak to make a statement. In a world addicted to noise, silence is radical. It's not weakness. It's not surrender. It's the language of those who no longer seek approval. Because when you fall silent, you take back your power. You step out of the trap, and you let time, truth, and karma finish the sentence. You chose not to write. A Stoic man doesn't chase validation. He doesn't beg for closure. He doesn't crumble under pressure. He doesn't scream to be seen. He simply steps back and lets the universe do what it does best. Restore balance. So the next time someone lies to you, betrays you, insults you, provokes you, or regrets what they've lost, don't respond. Don't explain. Don't perform. Just watch and wait, because karma doesn't need your help. It just needs your silence. If this message struck something deep within you, if you found truth hidden between the lines, then don't just scroll away. Subscribe to Stoic Capsule, where strength is quiet, wisdom is sharp, and every word is built to last. And if you know someone who needs this message, send it, share it, or better yet, let your own silence echo it. Forward.